Who's up for a statement year in 2024? And when I say statement year, I mean like a team that could walk out there and just silence all the noise, all the external volume around them, and just kind of drop the mic on the rest of the college football landscape. College football fans, the season is right around the corner. If you're just finding this show, we talk college football every single day. Want y'all a part of it now. Make sure you are subscribed to the On3 YouTube channel because this show, The Hard Count, man, live Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern. But again, content all around the clock for you. So lock in right here. College football season is about here. That means our time has arrived. The first team that comes to mind for me when we unpack this prompt is Texas, man. Because Texas, there's a lot of volume around them that last year was kind of a one-off. People keep talking about old Texas and bad culture Texas and Texas that went 5-7 when Steve Sarkisian first got there. And then you take that volume and you pair it with the fact that Texas is moving into the most difficult conference in college football, of course being the SEC. For Texas, if you go out and do what you did last year in the SEC, and meaning you go make the college football playoff, forget win the conference, which is also, I believe, on the table for the Longhorns in 2024. Let's just say you make the college football playoff. You go out and have a double-digit kind of win season. I think at that point it's like, all right, what else do you have to say? Because Texas lost multiple big-time players to the NFL, from Xavier Worthy to Devondre Sweat, to Byron Murphy, to Adonai Mitchell. They lost a ton of key pieces from last year's squad. And then to run it back and have success yet again at the Tier 1 level, what else do you have to say? What else can you say about Steve Sarkisian and Texas? I think at that point it becomes very, very clear the thing at Texas, the mechanism at Texas is at that point not on cruise control, but I think at cruising altitude to where we can expect Texas to be a Tier 1 team for the better part of the next however many years Steve Sarkisian ends up coaching at the University of Texas. Florida State, we've said this a couple times on this show, man. The opportunity for them is absolutely massive in 2024 because think about all that they lost. We just talked about what Texas lost. Florida State is 83rd in the country in returning production. Y'all, there's only 134 teams. Okay, so for Florida State, if they go out and have success again in 2024, let's say they win the conference. Put a more specific point on this. Let's say they win the state. Say they beat Florida, they beat Miami, does Florida State. At that point, they drop the mic on the entire state and make it very clear, we are the big dog in this state. Because Miami, man, I've said it many times, I think they're trending upward in a massive way. I expect a lot from Cam Ward and the Canes this upcoming season. But if Florida State, with more or less a, not totally brand new roster, but a lot of new pieces on that roster, and they end up having success again, and they beat a team like Miami, and they beat Florida yet again, like what other excuse do you have if you're an in-state kid that wants to stay in-state to not go to FSU? I think at that point the sales pitch is itself. The other part that you can make a statement for, in this case for the good folks in Tallahassee, I think Mike Norvell personally has a chance to drop the mic. Because we've questioned him for a while now of, well, he likes to live off the portal. Well, the high school recruiting leaves something to be desired. Can you really live through the portal? And if they go out and win the conference again in 2024, they win the state again in 2024, Mike Norvell can just say, yeah, I do this. Say what you want about the portal. Say what you want about how unreliable it can be and it's not the most sustainable way to go about your business. I do this, all right? It may not be reliable for y'all, but look at my track record. Look at the way that we use the portal. We're more than fine doing things how we do things out here. So if you want to question our methods, more power to you, but results speak a whole heck of a lot louder than words, is what I believe Mike Norvell can say if they have success again in 2024. Speaking of statements, man, Michigan, they're kind of in the news right now with the whole Connor Stalions doc going on and other things of that nature around that whole situation. If Michigan makes the college football playoff, forget the Big Ten championship for a second. I think Michigan will factor into that conversation, but everyone's talking about Ohio State and Oregon. Let's say Michigan goes out and wins 10 football games, which is not by any stretch of the imagination unlikely, and they find themselves in that dance, in that field of 12. I think the statement you make if you're Michigan is, we're not going anywhere. I talked about Florida State being 83rd in returning production in all of college football. I mean, that looks like they have the majority of players back compared to Michigan. They are 128th in returning production in all of college football. Not to mention they lost their head coach. Not to mention they lost their DC. Like, there is a ton of new pieces at Michigan. And so if they go out and duplicate a similar level of success in what is really supposed to be, I say supposed to be in air quotes for those of y'all on podcast, what's supposed to be a down year for the Wolverines, like, it's very clear they're not going anywhere. And I'll say this too. I think there is maybe a little bit of a misconception as to how involved Sharon Moore is, or was rather, when Jim Harbaugh was there, in the way they did things. Like, there's this thought that Jim Harbaugh's now gone to the league, so goes with him his development and his culture and all those things. Like, Sharon Moore, I'm telling you right now, has his fingerprints all over that national title run they had last year in Ann Arbor. I promise you. So keep an eye on the Wolverines, man. I'm just telling you, they could have us all saying at the end of this season, man, they were supposed to take a step back, and then they just kept pushing forward. They've cracked the code to development and toughness and just bully ball in college football. So Michigan definitely has a chance to make a statement. One more team to talk about here before we move on to our predictions, Ohio State. And it's funny to say that Ohio State has a chance to make a statement year because really they're teed up to be a national championship kind of team. Like, they have the second best odds in Las Vegas right now to win the whole darn thing. Like, they went out and got Caleb Downs. They have arguably the best on paper, at least, going into the season, defense in all of college football. They have the best running back room in college football. They went out and got better at quarterback. But so I think what's important to be said here about Ohio State is for a long time, there's been this misconception about Ryan Day, or this conception about Ryan Day, I suppose, this opinion about Ryan Day. We'll see if it's a misconception or not. If Ohio State does what they're supposed to do, I think we can finally put to rest all the born on third base talk. Because remember now, Jim Harbaugh saying some people think they've hit a triple when really they were just born on third base. I'm paraphrasing there, but that was essentially what he said about Ryan Day and what he hasn't done at Ohio State. I think at that point we say, okay, let's give some flowers to Ryan Day at this point. Like, let's make sure that we keep that same energy we had against him as the college football public for him if they start doing what they're capable of doing. Because this thought they were born on third base, here's the deal, man. If you stand on third base long enough, at some point in time, the inning ends, right? Like, at some point in time, if Ohio State was going to fall off from a talent perspective, that would have happened already. People are saying, well, JD, like, the losses against Michigan and the way they've looked, and it's like, I understand all that. I'm not pushing back that those were bad losses. But I think to just continually dunk on Ryan Day and say that he's the problem and say that he's not the right guy at Ohio State, to me just feels a little bit irresponsible. And the reason why I feel that way is because he has consistently pushed the envelope to get better at Ohio State. And for himself as a head coach, his first time being a head coach is when he got the keys to the program in Columbus, he has continued to evolve. Like, think back to that game against Oregon, however many years ago it was. Mario Cristobal and company roll into the shoe. His first-year starter, C.J. Stroud. And C.J. Verdell, the running back for Oregon, I think is still running for touchdowns today in Columbus. Like, they ran all over them. At that point in time, Ryan Day is like, oh, we gotta figure this out on defense. We got to get better like today, Junior. And so he switches around the defense. That offseason, they go out and hire Jim Knowles from Oklahoma State. A couple years later, they have one of the best defenses in college football. This past season, Kyle McCord, not bad statistically, but wasn't good enough in the big moments, wasn't good enough on that last drive against Michigan, throws the interception to ultimately lose the game, and then the dust settles on the regular season. Kyle McCord was communicated in some form or fashion that he was not guaranteed to be the guy next year. Ryan Day says, we got to get better, goes to the portal, gets Will Howard. Goes to the portal, gets Quinshon Judkins to add into an already pretty solid running back room led by Travion Henderson. Like, there's all these instances of Ryan Day continuing to try and up the ante at Ohio State. I think it'd be very easy if you're Ryan Day to just sit back and say, yeah, I went 11-1. It's really, really good. Things didn't break our way in the final game of the season. Like, let's just see if we can game plan our way to it. Let's see if myself as a play caller, I can get us better and over that hump. He says, no, I'm going to pass the sticks, bring in a head coach in the Big Ten from UCLA and Chip Kelly to be our offensive coordinator. Ryan Day is continuing to push the envelope. And so the statement, again, that Ohio State could make is nothing third base about it. Nothing that we're living off of the past regimes about what Ohio State is right now. So does that happen? Remains to be seen. Does it happen for Texas or Michigan or Florida State alike? Remains to be seen. But I'm telling you right now, all these teams, I believe, wholeheartedly are teed up to make a statement in 2024. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.